part 6 in the series where you ask questions about the Fae and Cryptid. Today's question is from Talik. So the question goes, why is it that when most people think of Fae, they think of small women with wings like Tinkerbell? Why is that the most common or well-known by people? There are 3 reasons: controversy, gaslighting ourselves, and limited knowledge. Let's start by talking about us gaslighting ourselves first. So the small ones that look like any kind of insect are actually cryptids, and they're not Fae. If we're not talking from the standpoint of people talking about everything being Fae, we're not talking about that right now. We're getting into the detail. And when we get into the detail, when I say Fae, I mean energy beings that hold lots of energy, and they're not from Earth. They might have done a lot of things to help Earth exist in the first place, like, you know, from our point of view, but they are like they maybe made Earth part of it, and they now reside on Earth, or they've resided on Earth for a while, right? But to keep things simple, just think of them as holding energy, like holding a huge amount of energy, so much that in most realities on Earth, they cannot be in those realities because of the way that the beings are living. And when I say beings, I mean humans. Like, if the humans don't know about how much space they have, or the fabric of the universe and the way it's set up just a tiny bit, if they don't know that, usually that reality, if the whole, you know, part of the reality doesn't know that, they won't be there, or there's no space for them. But when we get to talk about cryptids, they are of Earth and of something else sometimes. This will depend on what they're working on. Now to the gaslighting part. So when we start to look at, for example, we see something and we feel like we're like, oh, it's not really an insect, it's not really a bug. That's probably when you've seen a cryptid, right? So we gaslight ourselves with all kinds of things like this because it's for our sanity in the reality right now. So let's say you don't know that you have so much energy having to do with cryptids and Fae and things like that, and you don't know that you're sensitive to those things and feeling them more often or easier. And even if you are not concentrating on it, you're still going to feel it more than someone else who's not concentrating on it. So what you'll do is, to feel comfortable in your reality right now, you will say, oh, well, that was a bug. You'll just keep gaslighting yourself, even if you're pretty sure it wasn't. And there are techniques, if you are interested in that, we do talk about that in the classes, to basically check, because, you know, when you read energy, this is one of the things, the techniques that we talk about in the building bridges and reading energy classes, is that basically you find out that, you know, when you talk about your mind's eye or your imagination or whatever that is kind of like your map. So it's like the map of, it doesn't matter where in the universe it is. It doesn't have to even be on Earth, but you can detect what something is that you saw, and if you see it that way, it's our perception. So if you're seeing it, even though you're going to see it as like an insect, you're going to see it that way, right? Most, but not all, insects are actually cryptids, and it's not as straightforward because it's the way we see them, and this is why they are completely different than animals, but they do have some similarities. They do share a lot of things that animals do, but there's even some animals that are cryptids as well, which I think most people know. But insects are basically, it's the same idea of taking care of Earth and being of Earth, but also not of Earth. So next time you gaslight yourself, that could have been a little fairy thing. Now to the controversy. So the controversy is, if you look to the 1900s, there were these little girls that swore, or their parents helped them or something like that. It changes all the time because of reality things. Swore that they saw fairies. And so there was a photographer that took pictures, but what he really did was collage things. And because the technology was a new technology and people didn't know that you can collage things and images, they basically got away with it until later when people realized that it's not. So the controversy is that was such a big deal, and people felt really tricked and kind of offended. And so that kind of went into a lot of the storytelling and things like that, which we'll get into when we say limited information. So when people get upset with things, especially with spirituality or things that are invisible, people get very frustrated and they feel tricked. They feel like, because they really are excited by it. And then when someone tricks them, they don't realize it, that kind of thing. Now, when that happens, it sticks into the culture. It's part of, the timeline. When I talk about anchoring in timelines in history, this is going to be the next thing that we do. We're going to do little classes leading up to talk about this. It's a very heavy topic. It's very hard for people, especially with, thinking of past lives and not knowing that they're all parallel and you have access to all of them and they're a part of you, like for real, a part of you. They're not like far away or gone or dead or whatever, right? And so when we get out of, like right now we're talking about the controversy, but now we're going into having limited information. So if you keep in mind having limited information, which is like something like, for example, that I'm thinking about how they got tricked and there's people trying to falsify things. And you know what? If anyone feels upset about that, that's definitely a trigger. But you need to think of it as art. It's someone, they want it so much that they're trying to express it. But they, instead of doing some beautiful art and just making things, they're like trying to prove things. And this is something I talk about that's kind of a sickness in spirituality. And I hope that people can see past that and just, kind of take it easy and relax, because everything is made up. So there's no need to prove things, and there's no need for people to feel like they're getting tricked. Like there's no need for that, because why do that? Like just create cool things that you love or you see and just, make art. So all those people who do these things where they have like fake mermaids and things like that, where the bones are put together and things like that, just why can't they just make it art? Why does it have to be something weird like that? So anyway, so that is something that happens. So people are so focused on them when they get hurt and that they need to prove things because they do have experiences and they don't know how to explain it. And these are the people who are not gaslighting themselves. So they're trying to recreate these scenarios, not always, but sometimes. So you have the people who are upset. You have the people that upset that they got tricked. You have the people who don't care about getting tricked and whatever is going on. They don't care and they're just keep going for it and trying to do proof. And then you have the people who keep channeling things and stuff like that. So when you put all these things together, that is a limited amount of space. And I talk about this analogy of a room where there's one balloon in the room and everyone's like taking pictures with this balloon and they do everything possible. And all they need to do is open the door and go outside to get more balloons or different things, right? But they all keep fighting over this balloon and trying to prove what that balloon is and all that stuff. So having this limited knowledge and recycling and stuff like that, it becomes a part of pop culture. And sometimes pop culture can be trendy and fresh, but it becomes not trendy and fresh when people are, like I said, competing, which is a sickness kind of Earth anyway, but that's for another video. If you're interested about that, I can direct you guys to that video. But anyway, so basically that kind of feeling of constantly competing about this one thing when there's infinity. Like people, instead of them doing this, like when they make movies or do arts and things like that, they could literally do, I always think this way, I'm like you could do anything, there's infinity. It's also funny, on the live recently, someone said that, they said, oh, you have such a big imagination. And I didn't even think about it, but I'm like, because it was so quick and it was alive, but I wanted to say, so do you. Everyone does. It's just which parts of your energy are you going to utilize or express? It doesn't always have to be references from things that you see. It can be a mix of things. So I hope this Fae series has done that for people. Feel free to have a look at the rest of the series. I'm gonna have a workbook about Fae, so stay tuned for that. For now,